What can you change? When you talk about change for your own growth and development, what do you change? Okay, well, you can change your beliefs, you can change your assumptions, you can change the way you think, you can change your behavior, and maybe you'll change your results. So if you think about this, the beliefs that you have and the assumptions that you make influence the ways that you think. The way that you think influences your behavior. Your behavior influences your results. Now, a lot of the time when you go to training programs, this is what they'll focus on. We're going to change your behavior. As you well know, you can easily change people's behavior in the short run. You can frighten people and they'll change their behavior, as long as you're hovering around. But when you go away, that changes. So what you really want for yourself is to kind of go a little deeper than just the behavior. Another way to say this for me is, if I continue to believe what I have always believed, then I will continue to think what I have always thought. If I continue to think as I have always thought, I will continue to act as I have always acted. And if I continue to act as I have always acted, I will continue to get what I have always gotten. That's sort of the extended version of the vernacular definition of insanity, of doing things the same way and expecting a different outcome. So you have to change something if you're going to change your results and your behavior. And I'm suggesting go back and look at some of your beliefs and assumptions. So, as an example, one of my beliefs I've learned from my experience: executives love to learn, but they hate to be taught. Most successful executives, they're smart, but they're also successful because they work hard and they keep learning. They also usually have to save face, so you can't really force feed them. You can't let them know that you're teaching. So I know when I work with executives, I just realize you can't teach them. So you have to find a way to slip it in, and they'll eat it up. So that's one of my beliefs, and it influences how I work. How many of you believe we learn from experience? Just raise your hand if you believe we learn from experience. Okay. I'm with you. We do learn from experience. However, I will also say having experience is not a guarantee that you will learn from it. Have you ever kicked yourself because you keep making the same mistake over and over? For me, early on in my life, it was back it up. I kept not remembering that I should back something up. So every time I lost my system, I'd say, I got to start all over again. Or I think when you hit like mid-40s-ish or 50s-ish, midlife, one of the things you start to really get is you should trust your intuition. Because after a certain number of cycles, you realize, you know what, I'm pretty accurate with what felt like gut feel. But that's something that takes time and it takes experience to learn. So we do learn from experience, but there's also a difference between 10 years experience and 1 year's experience repeated 10 times. And I think the big difference simply is, do you stop yourself periodically and just ask yourself, what am I learning from what I'm doing? It's really that simple. What am I learning from what I'm doing? If you don't ask yourself that question, the learning doesn't ever really anchor, and so you're more prone to continue to make the same mistakes. And a lot of these themes and patterns and principles are just as true for organizations as they are for individuals. Some organizations have a really hard time learning from their mistakes. It's a primary source of learning is mistakes. Some organizations get so caught up in a witch hunt to figure out whose fault it was that they lose the opportunity to learn. I think it was NASA actually was the first organization to ever turn a witch hunt around. And early in the mid-60s, when they were doing some space missions, they were the ones who came up with the idea of, after a successful mission, let's tear this apart and figure out what we did right. Up until then, it was pretty much, you only go figure it out when somebody screwed up. You're trying to find out whose fault it was. So it's kind of a positive witch hunt in a way.